portal. Campus portals differ somewhat from other types of portals, and this is a definition of a campus portal. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, obviously, are campus portals. But they have those characteristics that I just defined. Portals generally, in fact not generally, all campus portals that I'm aware of require a sign-on, and they provide single sign-on to all the resources within the given institution. So once somebody logs onto the portal, now they're in the network, they can get their email, they can get library resources, they can get into the student information system without having to enter additional passwords or logons. For administrators, like many of us here, you can do purchasing, you can access your accounts receivable, your budget, personnel records. For students, they also bring to the portal things that many students at our institutions already have available to them, which are online registration, accessing their grades, their transcripts, registering for a parking permit, very important at my institution where everyone drives to work, meal plans, a calendar, personalized to-do lists, and the course resources that are part of course management tools also now come within the portal. Faculty can do things which they can do through other systems as well. Doing grades, posting their syllabi, assignments. They also get their own calendars and to-do lists. For alums, and many portals, academic portals, have an alumni piece to them. There's the online giving, keeping up on reunion information or other information that the institution wants alums to be aware of. For those of us who are librarians, again, it brings under the umbrella of the portal all our library resources, including the password-protected databases that students would have to access separately. Things about student organizations, clubs. This is the highly personalized information. If somebody is the example we always use at St. John's, accounting major, I don't know why accounting, but they can get information about accounting organizations or speakers that they, as accounting majors, might want to be interested in. So you don't get flooded with 100 flyers or 100 email messages that are completely irrelevant to you and then miss the few things that you want. This pushes targeted information to you because the system knows who you are. Email, a highly important component. I'm going to talk a little more about why St. John's got into portals. And email was crucial to us to provide a much more robust, I guess might be the word, email system off campus. Unlike Extranets or Intranets, you can pull external information, news, weather, sports, the types of things that people go to other, what are called portals also, things like Yahoo or Netscape for, can be brought into the campus portal. So it mixes internal and external information. Web shopping through the bookstore, through the athletic store, whatever, can be part of the portal. And again, the targeted, highly personalized announcements is a big seller for most academic institutions. Well, now that we've talked a lot about portals, let's take a look at one. If I can figure out how to do it. Let's hope this works. Worked 100 times in my office. One of the problems with portals is that because they're password protected, you can't see another institution's portal the way we can all go to our competitors' websites and see what they're doing in terms of web technology. But the University of Buffalo does have a demo site. For those of you that are at institutions that have not yet implemented portals and you want to see a few, this is an ideal place to go. And you see here that they have an undergrad, graduate student, and faculty view. And does anybody have a preference? We'll look at one of them. Anybody want to see? Okay, then I will pick. Let's go to we'll go to the graduate school. I think it was just grad. This is a very typical campus or academic portal. It provides the student, in this case a graduate student, with information about the courses they're taking, and these are all links to the home pages of those courses. Faculty members can do here what they can do with products like Twen, post syllabi, link to other resources, have chat features, have email features. It knows who the student is, what semester they're in, what their major is, what degree they are going for. Down at the bottom, you see more information about, there's the bookstore. And on the side here are links to general, administrative, and academic tools that students would all want to have available, which is web registration, their grades, their parking permits, their GPA calculator. So this is a very typical academic portal. And Buffalo's is considered one of the best. So it's nice that they make this demo available. Does anybody want to see the faculty view? Okay. I believe they did, yeah. Because I'm saying that I don't know for a fact, but I didn't see any reference here to Campus Pipeline or Blackwood. Most of the institutions that have those do. Thank you. And how high, I guess let's, since you're here, how highly used is your portal? Do most of the students? Oh, well, they got to do something about that. I know UCLA also has a very highly regarded portal. I'm trying not to say portal like a New Yorker. Well, here's the faculty view, and it shows the faculty member the flip side of what the students show. It shows the faculty member information about the courses they're teaching that semester. When students register for a given course, their name is automatically put into the roster of the course for the faculty members, so that the faculty member has an automatic email list for the students. Now, of course, for many of us, the key is to get the faculty to use it, because if the faculty don't use it, the students aren't going to use it. And that's the big challenge many of us have, especially I think at the law school level. Where's the webmail? Okay, let's see if that shows it. So just a link to their webmail system. But I know that June and Mark are going to show you their portal from the University of Texas, so I don't want to spend too much time in Buffalo's. But it's crazy to just sit here talking about a portal without looking at one. So that's an example of a portal. And the reason portals are so hot right now in most academic institutions is because they can and should, if they're implemented correctly, do a number of things. They can build with students what are called application to endowment relationships. Some schools, if they're really advanced in their portal development, already have a portal for prospective students or accepted students. Your admissions people would love to have, in fact, our admissions director was just asking me if this was possible at St. John's, a site for accepted students to go to, or even just applicants where they can track their application and they can track their financial aid information. They certainly can, as you can see, increase productivity by bringing everything anyone who's a part of the university community, be it a student, a faculty member, an administrator, needs together in one place, from home or from on campus or from anywhere. They reduce information overload. Probably one reason a lot of insiders don't go to the institution's website is because there's so much stuff there for so many different groups that for a student or for a staff member to find what they need, they have to work their way so far down in the website, they find it frustrating. So it targets again and customizes and personalizes information for who you are. And according to Dan Kavik, I believe his name is, of the University of Minnesota, he estimates that 75% of all university services can be made available to constituents through the portal. So I think you can see an example of that here, from registration to grades to contact with faculty, contact with key administrators. Whether it's 75% or something close to it, it does accomplish that, I think. And there was a session this morning on knowledge management. One of the things I've read about portals is that it helps address the knowledge management issue within an academic community by bringing the intellectual property of that institution together in one place and making it available to all constituents. So how hot are portals? Well, this statistic I came across, and I tried to update it. There is a portal listserv available through EDUCAUSE, so if you are interested in this, you may want to join that. And I put a message on that listserv, and people first started disagreeing with this statistic, and no one seemed to have a more current number, so we'll go by this, that in 2000, only 5% of colleges and universities had portals. EDUCAUSE does a survey every year of CIOs of colleges and universities, obviously, and portals weren't even on their top 10 list in 2001. But this year, it ranked 4th in terms of things they know that they're going to have to be thinking about in the very, very near future. Anybody want to guess what was number 1 on their list of concerns? Funding for IT, which is probably always number 1 on the list, I would think. But last year, in 2001, distance ed was at the top of the list. So, you know, portals are maybe today getting to be as hot as distance ed was a year or 2 ago. Well, how much does this all cost? It depends. The Gartner Group, this is their estimate, which we're going to look at a couple of specific examples of costs, is probably accurate. In doing our research for the portal at St. John's, we, of course, called some references, and one we called was Worcester Poly, which is a school of, I think, about 2,800 FTEs and a faculty of several hundred. They purchased Campus Pipeline, which is one of the leading portal products, and they were very kind enough to share with us their fees and costs. We also, at that time, we were considering Blackboard. And we called University of Oregon, obviously a much different institution from Worcester. I think they have 17,000 students. And they did go with Blackboard, and these were the costs they estimated. And a third option, you can either build it in-house, you can buy it, or you can join a consortium. University of Michigan and University of Texas and Buffalo, some very large institutions have built their own. And Michigan estimated that it was costing it about $1 million a year. And many of you may have seen the article in the Chronicle of Higher Ed a couple of months ago. They're shutting down the portal because even though it was really good and everybody liked it, it was just costing too much money. I love this quote from EDUCAUSE because this has been our experience at St. John's. EDUCAUSE in this article went on to say that portals are necessary because of all the things it can do. First of all, because your students and your faculty are going to expect them. If everybody else has one, we've got to have one too. They allow the institution, of course, to leverage the information they have in databases. They do result in cost savings. So they're necessary for those reasons. They're obviously very complex to pull all these different systems together to get the content you need on the site to create it or to get it from the people who have it and sometimes don't want to share it. And they're perilous because, and what the article said, I'm going to sort of paraphrase it, because so many people within academic institutions are very leery of IT's latest solution to everyone's problem, and portals are seen as something that's going to do everything for everyone within the campus environment. Which brings us to the St. John's experience, which I have subtitled When Things Don't Go According to Plan. Just to give you a little background, St. John's is located in New York. We have 5 campuses. The main campus is in Queens. We have about 17,000 students. Obviously a law school. We also have a campus on Staten Island, one in Manhattan now, Oakdale, which is on Long Island, and one in Rome, which is not a borough of Manhattan, or a borough of New York, but somehow we got a campus in Rome. And St. John's was founded by the Vincentian fathers, and its mission is to educate the poor, educate children of immigrants. Many of our undergrads are the first person in their family to go to college. And I tell you that because it means that St. John's doesn't have a lot of resources to devote to IT. Law school is, of course, very autonomous from the university, like most law schools, and certainly in areas of IT. The portal was not on the radar as far as the law school was concerned as something that we needed or wanted. But about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, the word portal was first spoken on the St. John's campus at our ITech, Information Technology Advisory Committee meeting. And people, very influential people on the committee, felt that portals would solve a lot of our problems. We would have single sign-on, we'd have remote access to a lot of information we can only get on campus. We would have a better email product because with the portal comes email. We would be able to cut down on paper and information overload and get information to the people who needed and wanted it. And those were a lot of ITAC's priorities, separate and apart from the portal. So we started talking about portals, and everybody on campus would say, "What's a portal?" And now I have an answer, at least for them, when they ask me. We contacted vendors, and the primary vendors we looked at were Blackboard and Campus Pipeline. Those seem to be the 2 leading portal vendors at the time. And there were many demonstrations, many meetings. Again, we checked references. And we selected Campus Pipeline, I guess about a year ago, a little more than a year ago. A steering committee was formed, and I think this is the typical way in which these things proceed at academic institutions. The steering committee had 15 people on it from all different areas of the university, and I was the law school's representative, I'm the law school's representative on the steering committee. And then the Campus Pipeline people came in and did focus groups with faculty, students, and administrators, different focus groups, and the librarians. And they ran the focus groups, and lo and behold, they concluded that Campus Pipeline was the answer to all our problems. So if you're going to do focus groups, that's wonderful, but I really think that Campus Pipeline drove too much of this, that a lot of it maybe should have been done by the steering committee separate and apart from Pipeline. And that's certainly true with what they called visioning sessions. What the visioning sessions were 2 back-to-back day-long meetings, 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, with the Pipeline people and the steering committee. And the purpose of these was supposed to plan the portal. What was the St. John's portal going to look like down to the very last detail? What content were we going to have on the left side? Where were we going to target the messages? What colors? What logos? And as it turned out, again, I think that if you go through this process, the steering committee needs to do a lot of work separate and apart from the vendor, because they came in with a very set structure as to how they do these visioning sessions at all institutions. And we all know that every institution is different, and every institution brings to this a lot of different baggage. You know, it's like when those of you who teach law, you teach the students, you've got to have the rule of law, you apply it to the facts of a given case. And the facts of a given institution are going to be different with every institution. So as we went through these visioning sessions, we realized at St. John's there were a lot of issues unique to us that we had to resolve before, or if we were going to successfully launch a portal. One closest to my heart, of course, was the law school. The law school doesn't want to see the same information that everybody else we're in the Queens campus, the main campus. To be honest, about no one in the law school cares what is going on over there. We don't care about their academic calendar, their guest speakers, their exam schedule, their registrar, because we know law schools are so self-contained that none of that would apply to us. And I sat at the steering session having explained this to some people who really didn't understand how law schools function. Fortunately, a lot of people on the committee did and agreed that the law school had to be a separate campus. So rather than just have 5 campus portals within our overall portal for the geographic campuses, the law school had to be a 6th portal or 6th campus. And fortunately, working with the Campus Pipeline people, we realized we could do that. So again, if you're the advocate on the steering committee for the law school, you have to make sure that you have your own portal. Adjuncts. One of the problems with the way our system, our administrative system, which is Banner, many of you probably use the SAT Banner system, works, is that if you're teaching in a given semester, if you're an adjunct, you're in the system, quote unquote. When you're not teaching, you're out of the system, which would mean that for the semesters you as an adjunct are not teaching, you would not be able to access the portal. Well, that's not very good if you have somebody who teaches every spring or every fall. You want them to stay a part of your community and to be within the portal. So that was a technical issue that had to be resolved, and I understand they're working on that. Another is multi-role individuals. You see there's a student view, there's an administrative view, there's a faculty view. Well, many of us have within our institutions people who are both administrators and faculty members, people who are both employees and students. What view of the portal will they see? Shouldn't they be able to see both? And this issue I know has been resolved so that I, as a faculty member administrator, would see both views. Training, a huge issue. How do you train? Well, to use this, it's so intuitive. You don't have to train students. But we have faculty, we have staff who are not that comfortable still with technology. How are you going to train them? When are you going to train them? Where are you going to train them? Policy issues, for example, one of the key components of the portal are targeted messages. Well, who determines what message gets top billing and how long the messages stay posted? Who determines the look and feel of the portal? So there are a number of policy issues that every institution will want to decide differently from the next. For us, email was a big issue. Most of us, I guess, use Outlook in the office, and then we have webmail, which is awful for like when you're here. And so part of the portal, what we felt would drive faculty, students, administrators to the portal would be a better email off campus. Campus Pipeline comes with iPlanet, but what we learned was that iPlanet may not have enough functionality for faculty and for administrators. So we're now in the middle of this big email debate. What do we do about the email piece of Pipeline? And it's really one reason we've delayed the launch until that's resolved. And then the biggest one for us, and maybe at your institution, is content. This will only succeed if the content that people need and want is there, and if it's updated constantly, quite literally almost on a daily basis. And we have a huge problem with getting that content, not so much within the law school anymore, but for the university, getting it onto the website. So if you have a content management issue with your website, you're going to have it with your portal. And people are going to go to the portal once, they're going to look at it, they're going to see nothing or not much of interest to them, and they're never going to look at it again. So what you really have to do is have that content, and I think with that, you will get user acceptance. And it's really not just the acceptance of the users, it's going to be the acceptance of upper management to keep funding it, the acceptance of the people who have to maintain the content, and then, of course, user acceptance. So this quote, which came from Howard Strauss of Princeton in the context of a portal, I think is quite accurate. You can't just build it and put it out there, which some people wanted to do. You really have to sell it to your constituents. So where do we go from here? Well, what St. John's has decided to do, and I hope to show you our demo site, which I realize is behind the firewall, so you can't see it here. But you can come to my office if you want to see it, because that's where I was looking at it. But anyway, we have delayed implementation of the portal. It was supposed to be launched campus-wide or university-wide in time for the start of the law school semester, which would have been mid-August, and that has been scrapped, that plan. We're still resolving this email issue, iPlanet, and what else. We are going to do a pilot using the School of Education, one of our smaller colleges. And from what I've read in the literature, most schools do pilots, so your institution should do the pilot. Again, the law school, the portal is not something we need. We have a fairly well-developed website, and so we feel our website is meeting the needs of a lot of our constituents. We're putting a lot of content up there for our current students, and so they can go to the web for a lot of information that we would probably just put on the portal anyway. So I have to say that, I didn't mean to sound critical of St. John's, I think its decision to delay launch of the portal was a very wise one, and I think a couple of years ago, under our former CIO administration, IT would have pushed this out, launched it to say, yeah, we've launched a portal, we did it on time, and people would have looked at it and been very underwhelmed by it and not gone back to it. So I think the decision to take a big step back and try to do this the right way has been the right one for us. And I think the key lesson to be learned is that while the concept of a portal, which many people on our ITech committee got very enthusiastic about, is a good one, you do have to look at your institution and see what issues are you bringing to the table, what are the facts of your case, and how will applying the portal to those facts either help or hinder you. And here are just a few resources for you. One thing you'll find when you go, I would start by going to this campusportals.org. There's a phenomenal amount of information about campus portals on the web, not only articles and slide presentations from other conferences. Again, if you're really interested or you're going to play a role in portal development at your institution, you should probably join EDUCAUSE's portal listserv. It tends to be more on the technical side, but it's one way those of us who are not technically inclined learn. And last, there's a book that June told me about, which I immediately went out and ordered off Amazon.com, Web Portals in Higher Education, which I think is published by EDUCAUSE. As soon as she told me about this, I went to the Amazon.com site, and they said we have 5 copies left. So maybe by another 4 copies. Well, there are obviously 4 copies left at least. But to me, that indicated how hot this was, that they're down to 5 copies of this book about web portals. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to June and Mark. Thank you. site right now, and I have a link to the presentation. Really, it's behind the firewall to the website. But once it's launched, sure, that's the idea behind it, is that you type in a username and password and you're on the portal. Oh, you know, I meant to cover that. Thank you. There were two. We are an SCT banner school, and so Campus Pipeline is not owned by SCT, but it integrates seamlessly into their trade because they have a relationship with them. The big factor is money. What we found out, calls the reference calls to places like Pepperdine, Worcester Polytechnic, and Oregon, is that Blackboard uses trades under like this Oregon, nickels and dimes. So every time you call, you have a technical question, the clock starts running. So the maintenance cost of Blackboard was considered prohibitive, whereas Campus Pipeline, as we're told, has much more control over the maintenance cost. And people, as soon as we spoke and said word was one, that Campus Pipeline set the standard for customer service. So the cost we felt the cost would not be containable using Blackboard. And now someone said Pipeline is going to start raising their maintenance fees as well. I don't know. But it was those two factors.
Well, thank you, Linda. That was a great overview, and I think you now have a general idea of what a portal is about and what's involved in setting one up in the first place. Now, Mark and I are going to come at it from the other end. We've had a portal in place for several years now, and so what we'd like to do is talk a little bit about the problems that we've had implementing it, some suggestions that we've come up with in hindsight, and some things that we've had to do to kind of make workarounds with some problems that we've encountered. But I would say overall, the experience has been very good, and we are very happy with the entire process. The university is extremely happy with our portal. One of the things that I'm doing, in fact, is I'm on a print reduction task force for the university, and the goal is to reduce all printing at the university in half. And the number one way they want to do this is by moving everything online. So the portal is going to play an extremely important part of that. And what's funny is over time, they're starting to move more and more things to it, and there's been some interesting resistance from the faculty. The first thing that happened last year was that the parking sign-up was moved online, and that was interesting. This year, all the benefit sign-up was moved online, and that was also really interesting. But I think that once we explained to them that this was necessary to save the university money, and that it was really for the good of the university, and actually in the end, they can access the information whenever, wherever they want, most of them bought it. So, I think the buy-in was fairly good once you explained what was actually going on, that we weren't just doing it to harass them. So anyway. There are two things that I think are really the most important things before you start even thinking about a portal. Number one, look at your systems. What kind of databases do you have? What kind of systems do you have? What condition are they in? Do you have PeopleSoft? Do you know where the files are? Do you know where the data is stored? Do you have access to those files? These are all really important questions. And if you can't get your underlying systems under control, then you might as well give up. And I think that was part of the problem with the Michigan project, is that they had so many diverse systems that they spent all of their time trying to get them under control. So I would say number one, evaluate what you have. And because if you think about it, the portal is just a front end. It really is nothing but splashy looking front end. And if all the stuff in the back is bad, it doesn't matter what you have on the front. So the stuff on the back is the really important part. And if you take nothing else away from this, please, evaluate your back end first. You've got to get your house in order before you can even think about a portal. So once you know what you want on the back, what you have on the back end, think about what it is you want to accomplish with a portal. And if your goal is that you want every student to look at it every day, and you want to serve out news well, then you better be ready to have news ready every day that's going to change, that's going to bring them in. If you don't have that, it's over. You have already failed. So once again, content, back end, very important. Now, UT Direct, which is the name of our lovely portal, our goal was never to, I say our, but really, Mark and I almost had nothing to do with the original product. I should put that disclaimer on there, is that the main campus really did all of it. We've just kind of tagged along. But, you know, if your goal is, in our case, to just bring together all of our systems, provide a unified interface so that it's easier to use for everybody, that was sort of our goal. That was an easily accomplished goal in our case. We never tried to send out news every day. We never had targeted messages. We didn't give people weather. I mean, it really depends on your goals. So when you set up your goals, it's important to think about whether it's actually accomplishable, or you'll end up like Michigan. So, go right ahead.
Okay. I do talk. I was hoping Jim would fill up the rest of the session, but I guess you didn't talk long enough. But one of the other situations that you need to pay attention to is making sure that you have a framework that's based on prototyping. There's nothing harder than having individual web pages and having to any kind of upgrade or new process or new, just a new look and feel if it's not being prototyped and modularized. That's a big issue. The next one is to focus on usability. So many times when we do the portal, we want to make sure everything's out there. We want to put everything we can. We pay too much attention to how it looks. And we don't focus enough on how it works. How's the processes? What are the steps involved? Some of the materials I read did usability tests where they'd actually count keystrokes. What can we do to cut down on that? That's another part of your portal strategy when you're defining it, is to determine can we make their processes easier, usability. Another issue is what goes on the website, and June's going to take care of that part.
This was actually a really big controversy in our own office. We have a team of database programmers and web programmers, and we actually debated this for many, many weeks. In fact, we still debate this today. It's a really
lots of hair loss.
Yes, it's a really interesting question. You know, what do you put on the portal, and what belongs on the website? Now, in our case, what we ended up doing was we were unable to become a campus like you were able to do, which is a really good thing, and I highly recommend that. And so, you know, we have our own registration system. You know, we don't use the university. We needed some way of directing our own students to our services. So what we did was we kind of created a mini portal. And the mini portal isn't a portal in the sense that it's, you know, customizable, but it is targeted towards specific audiences. So we have a student page that essentially functions as our portal. And we do have things, features on it that are kind of nice. For example, it gives you today's events pulled from our calendar. It gives you news announcements from our law mail system, which we'll show you later. And what we tried to do was kind of look at processes. So when, for example, if a student needed to register, what were the steps involved for registration? Do you have a course? You know, what were the steps? And we tried to identify those, bring the most important ones together, and put them all together on this page. Now, eventually, the next step, the UT Direct 2, whenever that comes along, is supposed to be able to allow us to create our own campus in a sense, so that you'll know who the students are and what the roles should be, and we can create our own little view. So, yeah.
This issue of what goes on the website versus what goes on the portal is a big one to me, because I think a lot of information, say, if you have a portal, you can take everything that you have on the website for current students and put it on a portal. But a lot of that's there not just for their benefit. You want prospective students to see a lot of the services and resources you offer current students. So if you have it on the portal, do you not have it on your website? Or will you have some content in those?
That's a very good point. And in fact, that was, we haven't answered that. We put it on the website partially because we wanted prospective students to look at it and say, oh, look, they have an online registration system. I can look up my grades online. I can pay my bills online. And so you are right. There is that kind of PR aspect to it. And I suspect, that's something we'll have to decide when that becomes available. But cross that bridge when we get to it.
That, I think, is where I put up the need to develop policy issues. That's one of the key policy issues that the university or the whole state of the campus should decide. For us, like, the only thing I can think of that I would want on the portal and not on the public website were with exam archives. That can be older than most of those accounts are protected in the school anyway. So that's on the portal, it will be on the portal and not on the website.
Right. But on the other hand, you probably want students, you want to see that they have one, yeah. They
Right.
can't get in, but they can see it, you have
And
it.
there'll still be a sign-on and authorization.
Yeah.
So,
So anyway, this is still a debate that's ongoing in our office, and
and we'll continue.
yes, forever, most likely.
Okay, the next issue seems to be the one everybody deals with the most, and I always think it boils down to money. And it's actually a lot more than that when you decide between buying versus building. Obviously, one of the biggest issues is cost. To do it in-house, what kind of staff do we need? What kind of new software, servers? What's going to be involved in us building this in-house, as opposed to having someone else build it and hopefully bring a lot of that knowledge and software along with them. Now, I guess, I don't know if this is just a rumor or what, but it's always been the intention that if you build it in-house, it's always going to be more expensive. And that may not necessarily be the cost. The issues that were talked about earlier with your current enterprise system, your current background, and the goals you're trying to achieve may make those costs actually come down in that area, as opposed to just thinking right off the bat that we cannot afford an IT staff to do that kind of work. Also, one other issue when you're thinking about buying versus building is the fact of the cost up front may be, not drastic is the word, but it may be high, but the end result and the time savings and the cost savings, we're talking about the paper reduction. That's going to be a real dollar amount that we'll be saving on that. And that's an issue to decide, too, when you're doing buying versus building, as to building it in-house. Building it in-house, also, you have control over what's being displayed. You have control over the look, the feel, the content. When you're buying it, you may not be able to, if it's open source, it's a lot better issue. It's a lot better situation for you. But if you're taking a closed source where they're supplying everything, you lose some of your freedom and your control over that issue.
And that's another issue, Blackboard versus campus pipeline, and that Blackboard is closed source.
And some of you may not, it may be easy because you have PeopleSoft, for example, doing everything, and you probably won't have a lot of choice. If you want to access your PeopleSoft student registration system, you have to buy PeopleSoft. You have to get the PeopleSoft portal. It may be an easy question for you. But once again, it all depends on what you have on the back end. Content management, we only bring this up because how the work actually gets distributed is an interesting question. At the University of Texas, we have kind of a unique system in that we have programmers like Mark who come out of a centralized training system, and they actually train everybody, and not only do they train everybody, but they get regular training sessions throughout their career at the University of Texas. So what's good about this is that we were able to build our own because we had this huge group of programmers with the exact same training, with good skill sets on the exact same system, and we could distribute the work among all the different schools and departments because of this similarity in programming skills. So it was a really good situation for us to be in that made it easier.
Okay, I'm going to kind of move through these kind of quick. Some of the hints, and this is whether you build in-house or if you purchase this, but the infrastructure needs to be centralized. Using templates, cascading style sheets, all this is a very important part to renew it, revamp it, any kind of changes you need to it. Very important that kind of information is all centralized. Also, validating the HTML. If you're purchasing, you may not have to worry about this at all, but if you're building it in-house, lots of standards are coming down the line, and validating your HTML now with W3C offers a free validator that you can download and check and make sure that you're compliant now with browsers. Also, another big issue is making sure it's ADA compliant. When you're evaluating your portal now, that's a big issue. Can a screen reader read this? Can Bobby or Jaws be able to read this new portal page that you developed or purchased? Also, multiple browser compatibility. Now, when we first started with the UTEID, that's our single online system, we had to force everyone to move to a specific browser. It was Netscape, and I think it was 2.2 or 2.3. We had to at that point. From that point on, though, we've now made it to where all our browsers are compliant with what we're currently doing with UT Direct. And obviously that's important based on whatever system you're on at home, your laptop, or whatever browser you can handle at that point. So we want to make it available to everyone. Okay. Another one is to keep the site looking current. It was mentioned earlier about the news and issues. If it's you know how the web is just always evolving, and things are always changing. Your website needs to also. And talking earlier about the centralized infrastructure, that makes it a whole lot easier too to keep your site looking current. And keep the customization simple. This has to do with when you're setting up your navigation for your portal, allowing the student to be able to customize their page. If it's too complicated and they have to go to so many different levels and so deep just to add another link on their page or another channel, they're not going to deal with that. They don't want to deal with that. So make sure that when you're deciding on that purchase or building it in-house, to keep that customization simple for the student. You can offer quite a bit and still make it very simple. Okay. So
before UT Direct was implemented, as you can see, a lot of different things were going on. The various departments were very distributed. So, the registrar system looked one way, and the admissions system looked totally different. The law school looked totally different. So what's been really a big change is this kind of bringing together all these different systems. So as you can see, we now have a consistent look and feel. It's a lot easier to use for the students, staff, and faculty, because when you look at one system, they all pretty much look the same from then on. The navigation's exactly the same from page to page. We've increased electronic communication. We've also added webmail. It's just a link from our system, though.
Yeah, and as you know, a student, when he's signing up for registration, he's also going to be looking at course information. He's also going to have a fee bill. The student doesn't have to need to know that he needs to go to the registrar for this part or the accounting department to get their fee bill. It needs to all be consolidated in one place because registration is one process. There's lots of different key parts to it, but it's one process. And the portal allowed us to be able to bring that all together so that the student doesn't have to keep jumping from page to page to try to find that information. So the portal became very helpful in that area. Okay.
This is just a little bit about the history of UT Direct. Back in October 1999, the president gave this big speech on campus that, yes, we needed to do a portal, and the catchphrase at the time was the concept of e-university. We brought in several people, key people like from the University of Minnesota, which has a great project going on there. We brought in all these different speakers, and everyone got really excited about this concept of e-university, basically doing all of your business processes online. And so that's the beginning of it, and this is kind of the result. These were kind of the things we were trying to do with it.
And it didn't go into the mindset with saying we're going to build this in-house no matter what. We did not go into that mindset whatsoever. And reading the documentation, which is available on the UT Direct website and available to the public to read the statistics, the numbers, they went in and evaluated several different portal projects. And of course it was the year 2000, and it's evolved quite a bit since that time. But the offerings that were there had problems with scalability, and being able to implement it with our back end was going to be a lot of headaches. So I know the environment has grown quite a bit, but that's what it was at that time. Okay, some of the reasons why UT Direct works right now is that all departments can control the services themselves. The accounting department will build their own system, and then they can control the content of that system and that service, but they also will put it into the template for UT Direct to give it the same look and feel. Also, it's a single sign-on for everything. As Gene mentioned earlier, our back end is really a nice situation in that most of the majority of services that are offered are done in an database, and we use a natural language, and we also use a web agent right now. It's an in-house language that was developed to interface with the web.
It sits on an IBM mainframe.
Right. And because of that, we're able to have a single sign-on everything. But that doesn't say that we have access databases. We use Cold Fusion. That single sign-on works with all those back-end services also.
And when we say single sign-on, it's not just single sign-on for the portal. It's single sign-on for if you want to use our wireless network, you have to have a UTE-ID. If you want to use Blackboard, it's the same UTE-ID. I mean, basically for almost every single service on campus, except for, I think, computer lab login, although they're switching it, is or will soon be UTE-ID controlled. So there's only one ID across campus for absolutely everything.
Actually, it was a benefit in the fact that it's one centralized file that we can control on that security, on that record that's created for that individual. The roles are defined on there. All the information about who this person is and authentication is all kept in one place. Because of that, allows us to define that person rather easily with one single sign-on. And that's talking earlier about the modularization. There's one module now that we use for authorization that all the services share.
Now, I would say that it is a security concern because suddenly your whole life is controlled by this one login. And what they've done is, before you could keep the same password for years and years and years. When Keith was here, at UT you could keep the same login for years and no one would ever bother you. And now they're starting to enforce, I think it's like every 6 months you have to change your password. It has to consist of non-dictionary words, has to have a number in it. I mean, they're really starting to, as there are more systems coming online, they're starting to make it hopefully more secure. But yeah, it is a danger. Somebody could steal everything you know. And this is one of the problems I have dealing with faculty is, trying to convince them that no, they shouldn't give their UTE ID to their secretary because the secretary can redirect where their check goes. So, but they don't seem to understand this yet, but I'm sure they will soon. But yeah, it's a very good concern.
But it's the same with any password or login. You have to
that's true.
keep it to yourself.
One of the things I've asked our people to look into is a single sign-on through our libraries. We have been that we didn't have the one database for us to connect our request to website. And it's really good it's possible to do all the logged in to the portal. And I just click on to let the person not have to enter their personal password. So we'll see if we can have it but that may be definitely more often.
Very good question. Yeah. You can.
From a library perspective, but all our contracts talk about having really negotiating for the contract. I don't think IT would have to because they use title and everything is secret and don't have to let it. So like a lot of somebody.
Right.
This is a substitute for proxy server. So students don't have to do anything.
Right, and that's the way we've set up ours, is that we just, in fact, Brian was here a second ago, but we just recently set up a proxy server so that anybody who's on the outside can log in with a UTE ID. It goes through a proxy server, which then spits out a limited number of IP numbers, which the vendor then will recognize. Yeah, and we just talked to them, and none of them had a problem with it.
I have a question about it.
We did, and in fact, this is the first year we did that. And if you come to my presentation tomorrow, I'll tell you all about it. But we created something called Fresh Law Central this year, and it was we handed out UTE-IDs to about 1,000 admitted students, and we set up a whole website. It was kind of a little mini portal once again that was controlled by UTE-ID, and we gave out a lot of information. And in fact, it's still in place, and we use it for things like sign up for Prospective Students Day. We have a online discussion board.
Roommate database.
We have a roommate database. There are a variety of things that we've done with it, and it was very successful.
Could you give us the idea that
Central University is. As soon as they were admitted.
Well, right now we've only done it on admitted students. As soon as a student's been marked as admitted, we generate an EID at that point, and then they're sent the information. Yes.
It is. It's instantaneous overnight.
Right.
What about a chat room or something like that?
Yeah, we haven't, well, we have a discussion board for the admitted students. We haven't talked about prospective students because you have to remember, this is the University of Texas. We have 1,500 enrolled students. We have probably 6,000 people who actually apply. So we're talking about huge numbers. And just handing out 1,000 EIDs, Mark and I were just constantly on the phone. Yes, your password is
This is
locked.
just law school
Yes,
numbers.
you need to unlock it. No, we can't do it for you. You have to call main campus. So that was a really wonderful thing.
But one important part, too, is that each one of the services are offered are responsible for the authorization of that. The EID, the UTE-ID, authenticates, tells us who this person is, and then each service is responsible on whether or not that person is allowed into this specific service at that point. Just like Fresh Law Central, we only allowed admitted students at this point. We had their UTE-ID created, and it had the role on that, and then we determined whether or not they're allowed in that specific service.
It was funny because our own faculty and staff, most of them weren't even allowed into Fresh Law Central, which was kind of an interesting situation.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that the prospective students is probably the last portal that most other students have. Most school people drop their current students, past students, and we weren't even admitted to the loans yet, and then
Just roughly costs, they spent almost $500,000. Almost all of it was on Blackboard. Buying 2 servers, we are now up to 4 servers. The license, which I think was something like $80,000, but you're talking about a school with 55,000 students in it.
And I was supposed to be sure and inform you that Blackboard was an issue that was going to be instituted anyways. It became a part of our portal setup, but whether or not this portal had come through or not, Blackboard was still been an issue. So if you want to remove that $383,000, the numbers look a lot better at that point.
It only took them 6 months to complete, about $250,000 in staff hours, and it was distributed over a lot of different staff members with different roles. And when it first came online, they actually had 74 services active, which I think is just absolutely amazing. Today, we now have 290 administrative web-based services, and even more are coming online every day. I don't think this even includes like the law school ones that we just put on. We just put on maybe 10 this past spring. We created 450,000 UTE-IDs. 115,000 people have claimed a home page. That means they've actually customized the home page. And we get 10,000 unique logons per day. 2,700 log on to the home page. What was interesting is, for example, people who want to use the timesheet can actually go directly to the timesheet. The timesheet, if any of you ever want to drive staff traffic to your website, to your portal, put the timesheet function on there. Okay, we're running out of time, so I just want to run through these really quickly. I just want to give you, if you want to look at this, it's at utdirect.utexas.edu. There is a test login that you can use called Portal Test A, password testing. And let me show you where to get that if you didn't, oh gosh.
There's a single sign-on.
Yeah, let me see if I can get into the...
do you know how they simultaneously? That seems to be a big issue on the listserv. how many simultaneous
I believe it's almost unlimited because we don't have, I mean, it's just limited by the capacity of the server.
Registration has always taught us that we need another server next year. So that we've built on servers as needed. So right now there really shouldn't be an issue with that.
And the university's web servers have something like a 99.997% uptime. So, and these run off of that. So it's a very good thing. Now, if you go to the very last link here, http://utdirect.utexas.edu, you'll see this About UT Direct link at the bottom, and that will give you the test login that you can use. So just remember utdirect.utexas.edu, and you'll be able to pull up all of this information that'll give you an FAQ, all sorts of stats. So why don't we log in? As you'll see in a minute, the login is actually for someone named Alice Portal Test, and hence the title of this talk.
most schools can't do it. It's an Asian university. And so most will go with some of the and what we really have to do is not only do research in terms of the cost, but what features this product has that you want. I know campus pipeline, for example, didn't have polling or survey features that was very important for student life people, but we still have those.
Just jumping a little bit ahead real quickly because you can do this yourself. But the top navigation bar up here is what I'm customizing at this point. I'm saying what 6 links do I want at the very top. Once that's decided, there are sublinks within there. So you can go on to the next page. And it says, okay, under admissions, what links would you like to have under admissions? And this controls all of the links at the very top on UT Direct.
And what's interesting is for news, as you can see, I put the School of Law on there, and that is an RSS channel. And for those of you who saw Elmer's posting the other day, an RSS channel is a really interesting way to go. What's nice about it is that you can use it in multiple places. You know, we can use the exact same piece of text, and it'll be served out here. It's served out on the website itself. You could include the University of Texas RSS channel on your own home page. I mean, you can include it anywhere. So it's a nice standard way to put information on.
And one example of bringing everything together is under My Finances, under the What I Owe button. Right there should tell you everything that you owe the university, whether it be supposedly parking tickets, registration fees, library fines, anything. And that was a consolidation of getting all the departments together in one area. So.
And you can just pay with a credit card and take care of everything at once.
Okay. And one last little feature on this page we'll talk about are the bookmarks. You can set up your own bookmarks within UT Direct to jump even further. And on the top navigation bar, you can see how the second line is changing for each one, because that's the links you selected earlier when you're customizing your page.
Now, one thing you don't see is if you are a real student and you actually are enrolled in classes, you will see on the left-hand side a listing of your courses. And when you click on the actual courses, it'll take you to kind of a virtual page that has like the office hours of your professor, where the class is located, what the link is for the Blackboard class. And what's nice is Blackboard is completely tied into our registration system. So every night, Blackboard knows who's in each class, what classes are being taught, who's teaching it. It's a wonderful, wonderful setup when it works. Hence the 4 servers instead of 2 now. But it's really, you know, even as a professor, I teach a class, I can go onto the system, I can get my, it's the absolute current list of people registered for my class. I can see once grades have been posted, I can see what the grades were that were posted. I can also get photo rosters. They pull the ID pictures for all these students, and I can get photos of all my students. And not only that, I can actually arrange them according to seating charts. So I can tell, you know, this person's sitting in C1, and it prints this beautiful little chart for me. This is a very good feature for the secretaries at our law school.
You just said how many will have
The photo rosters, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, the stat page. Yeah, we didn't bring the numbers, but on that stats page, it has it broken down by each individual role and how much they're using that page. And here's on. You know, we were talking earlier about the sub portal. This is what we do for the students on the law page. And there are links, obviously, to the secure services that are also in UT Direct at this point.
So thank you all very much. And if you have any questions, yes. You mean to the home page, right?
Well, there are several channels that be displayed, events, announcements. As far as like the benefits that are coming up, UT's staff are going to have to now start making decisions on their benefits for the next year.
I can tell you one of the most popular features is the RSS channel for the Daily Texan, which is the student newspaper. A lot of people do that. So every day there's a new list of headlines from the Daily Texan. So that's a big draw. You can also get the Austin Chronicle. You can get a lot of different news items online. So I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. Right.
Email. I think email is what we think is everyone over here.
Right, and you've hit exactly on what the UT Direct approach has been, is to focus on services rather than trying to get people to come because they might get pushed some interesting news.
Right, and I use that. It is user-centric. It doesn't just give the information the institution wants people to have, but information that they want and need. That's the whole. They're pushing very personalized and quality information to you. There's another question over here on this side, I think.
That's a very good thing. That's a very good question, and that's why we have to go to this page, because we have our own events calendar that we built, and the university has their own. And the problem is the university's calendar is kind of wide open to everybody in the world, and we're not exactly sure we want undergraduates coming to the Chicano Law Student food event. So
I always mention the free barbecue example.
Yes, they have a free barbecue every year, and so we're always kind of worried if we put it on the calendar how many people are going to come. But that's something that we're negotiating with UT Direct.
The new version of UT Direct is supposed to get a lot more role specific, to the point where we can actually display as a law student.
If you're a
and be
law
able to get,
student, you will see
you'll
X.
get this opportunity. But right now that option is not available. That's why we need to do this page right here.
Yeah.
I want to know how many of you that have or are planning for them. Have them? You will have them? Let me take that on. Any other questions?
Yes, it is.
Yes, and the biggest drawback so far has been the issuing of the UT EID. Absolute number one problem. What do you do when you've got, the law school alone has 20,000 alums. So what do you do when 20,000 alums lose their password? Who are they going to call? Not going to be me.
They would see a separate portal. The alums move along, their licensing institution, that's the whole application from down the way. That if you have it for accepted students, they see one of it, and 4 or 5 years later, when they're graduate law students, they see something totally.
Yeah, we're also planning on roles for high school students at this point. So we're trying to get them all the way through. Whatever.
Cradle to grave.
Yeah, the cradle to grave is the catchphrase. Yeah, well, continue to use it.
We don't know.
Yeah. Well, now, the statistics page that are available to you on UT Direct, I mean, it really does. It breaks it down to those numbers. I don't have them in front of me right now, but you can look on that page and get a good idea on who's still using their home page and return within the month. Those numbers are there also. So it's in the numbers right now are about to be updated for. They're updated all the way, I think, through August of last year, and the new semester will now be on there. So,
Thank you all very much.